Today I'm going to turn a football from this to this. Now in today's video, I'm going to be showing you how a DIYer would learn how to break in a football, and then I'm going to jump it up to the next level and work with a professional and show you how an NFL quarterback wants their balls handled. Have you ever actually noticed that on NFL Sundays, a football looks like this? But if you go to the store and buy that same ball yourself, it looks like this. And honestly, I've never batted an eye at this. I just thought they were worn in and used footballs that had been worn down time and time again. And so the color changed. But then I started to see all these videos of guys like wiping shaving cream and mud on footballs. And then I started to do a deep dive into the process of prepping a football. Now in today's video, I'm gonna show you guys how a standard DIYer can prep their own football to make it better for you to use. And then I'm gonna show you how a guy who the NFL quarterbacks trust to prep their balls does it himself. Kind of a weird thing to say. Now, I had no clue what this process was, but there is a technique called mudding and prepping a football that gets it to turn and change colors as you work it in. Now with this, you're trying to do four main things. You're trying to remove the red dye, deal with some moisture management, make it softer, and increase the amount of tack that's on this football. So in the first part of this video, I'm gonna go out there, get some DIY supplies, and figure out how to do this myself and prep in the ball like I did on this side right here. I'm gonna use only materials that I had at home and YouTube videos I'm finding to give me the best DIY tutorials to try and get a good result, just like anyone else would. In the second part of this video, a professional is gonna show me exactly what I did wrong, and that way I can do the second half of the football here, and that way we can compare the results of DIY versus how a pro wants it. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. So in the first part of this video, I'm gonna rummage up some supplies, watch some videos, and give you guys the full tutorial on what I would do if I was just like you, trying to learn how to prep a football for myself on a budget. Now I watched this video by Sports Dissected and this video by Wilson, and these are the main two I use to kind of influence what I did. Now for supplies, I'm trying to only use things that I had at home: shoe leather conditioner, a shoe brush, shaving cream. Of course, gonna need a football. And the only thing I did have to buy for this video is gonna be the actual mud from GridironFootballPrep, who we're working with on the second part of this video. All right, now let's hop into the DIY. We're gonna tape off half the football here, and that way I can do a one-to-one comparison. So based on one of the tutorials, they said was one of them you want to just start by removing the dye, and it says remove the film and give it a good brushing. The other one says you want to remove the dye by dipping it in a warm rag. And I'm gonna do just one section first. This is the side that I've just brushed, and this is the normal. Little different sheen to it. Well, let's brush this one too. Now, I do have two brushes, so I'm just going to dip in warm water. So that's basically how much dye came off. I'm gonna wipe off any excess water. Okay, let's let it dry, 5 minutes. Step 2, which is going to be apply shaving cream. Shaving cream softens the leather. In the Sports Dissected video, they literally just did 2 lines, so one on each quarter panel. So that's all we're gonna do. Massage it in and let it sit. Now we got a nice even coating on the ball. Okay, so now we have to remove the shaving cream by brushing it off after 5 minutes. That's not bad at all. It says you're supposed to at least apply 1 coat of leather conditioner, 1 or 2 coats. So I think what I'll do, rub in 2 coats of this. So I'll probably rub in 1 coat, let it sit for a couple minutes, come back and add a second coat. Let's let that sit. I will come back, and then tomorrow we will go into step 3, which is adding the mud. This is like legit mud that goes on the ball. You're literally slapping it on. Now, the ball has been mudded. Don't get on laces or stripes. Let sit for 12 to 24 hours until dry. Remove all mud with a wet rag and remove all the mud. I'll see you again same time tomorrow. Now that the mud is completely dried for 36 hours, point of the mud is to actually push it in. So when you're brushing the ball, you're thinking about pushing the mud into the football. Get a damp rag, I guess it'll be this one again. And I'm just gonna chip away some of the mud here. So I feel like I'm pushing the mud into the football. The only thing I don't get is the wet rag step, because like, why would you take the time to wet a football, clean a football, and then wet it again and take all the hydration into the leather again when you do that? So it's like, I feel like this is the way to do it. Just for fun, I'm gonna try my other brush. That looks pretty good. Scraping it will get some of the big chunks off. I'm gonna try getting more mud off the ball. Maybe let's just get rid of more mud. Okay, so that's what it looks like now. Now let's try brushing. Hey, that actually feels really good. Feels dry. It's no longer muddy. Brush for another 20 minutes. That looks really good. Now it says I can condition again, but I don't think I'm going to. I think I'm going to leave it like this. It feels good. Let's take off the tape and see how I did. Okay, so what is the difference? I actually get it. This just feels like hard and stiff and slippery and gross, but this feels like soft and grippy, and I am honestly shocked with how well that came out for having no clue what I'm doing. Part 1 is done. So, spoiler alert, yeah, if you watched the intro, you already saw that I already did the first part of the football. Guess I messed up the order which I'm supposed to film things. And honestly, I'm pretty happy with the result on this. But now, let's see what the experts think, and let's do the other half of the football. So I sat down with Dan and Emily from GridironFootballPrep. They make different products for DIYers to prep footballs themselves, but they're also trusted by some of the biggest names and programs in the entire country to prep footballs for their team. All right, let's jump into the interview.
My name's Dan Colson. Started this company 2.5 years ago with my wife. Both worked at major sporting good retailers. I worked at Wilson Sporting Goods for about a decade and really headed up the football division there, football product. My wife's worked at pretty much every major shoe retailer there is. Really come to have a great understanding of not only material science, but how, products should perform on field. Having an understanding of how to get footballs ready, how to extend the life of them, what quarterbacks are looking for, how to prep for different conditions. We're able to expand it to a really scientific level to make the best ball possible.
When you're talking about like NFL quarterbacks and stuff, who are you guys, or at least allowed to say that you know of that you're working for now, and like what teams are you working for that kind of trust you with this stuff?
We work with a variety of professional and college teams, the Ohio States, Notre Dame's, Oregon's one that's one of my favorites as well. So NFL teams, there's about 10 teams we work with, 6 we're prepping for full time. So we'll do anything from 150 to 500 footballs a year, quite honestly. Chances are if there's balls being thrown on a Saturday or Sunday, one of the team's footballs comes from our basement.
How does it work with somewhere that's like a multi-climate? Like, so say where I'm from, we have 4 different seasons.
You can have different preps. You'll literally have a box of, as you say, cold ball. You'll have wet. You'll have, call it regular prep.
Watching the video now that you've seen how I did in my first ball, and I'm actually quite happy with it. I don't know what I'm feeling for. I don't know the differences of what I should feel and what I shouldn't feel, but I can see that the color is completely different. I screwed up the laces. The laces are gross and dirty, and I tried to undo it and I couldn't, but it feels different enough where I feel like I did something right. But what do you think with how I did?
Obviously, just from looking at it, not seeing it, it looks great, right? I think people get hung up on the look so much. It's really the feel and what do you want out of it? Do you want it tackier? Do you want it softer? Do you want a combination of the two? Do you want like the moisture management? If you're in a high humidity area, how does that going to feel? The general thing that you can kind of do just as far as test, like, is it good? Is it not, right? If you're just doing a pass-fail test, one is, you kind of lick your fingers and get a little moisture on it, right? Simulate sweat and whatnot. And if you're able to grab that prep part of the ball, does it almost feel like it adheres to the ball? Does it have a little bit of tack versus the side that's not?
Refresh me here. So what's the order for these 3?
What we'll do is we brush the ball, apply some conditioner, let that dry, let that seep in, again, just to help with, you apply it to like a dry rag and wipe it on the ball. That'll help out some of that dye that we had talked about. Then you take the balm, apply it to the ball itself. The stick of it is probably the easiest way to apply it, but then brush it in. Okay, heat gun it, helps seep in. It has properties that allows it to seep within the pores of the leather itself. Then the mud is typically after that, after the ball has returned to room temperature.
Now, as far as applying it goes, is there anything specific you're trying to do, or is it literally just slap it on, even coat, and call it good?
We want to make sure that it's spread evenly throughout, right? You don't want half the ball to be a thicker coat of mud and another to be thinner. Typically, just as a rule of thumb, a thicker layer of mud is going to make your ball a little bit darker, but it is going to be very difficult to get that mud off of the ball. I could take a brush and really elbow into it and do long strokes to get the mud off, but really what you want to try to think about doing is brushing it into the ball. Short circular strokes are very important.
What is the shaving cream thing? And some people talked about in some of their videos about how the shaving cream is an agent to get excess dye out of the ball, basically.
Shaving cream acts as a couple different things. It does help extract some of the excess dye in the ball itself. It also can be a softening agent for the football. The issue with it is that it continues, so the ball will expand over time and the life of the ball will be a bit short. Shaving cream also can dry the football out. Really, if you think about it, if you're wiping a ball down with a wet rag or applying shaving cream, you're drying the ball out a little bit. Conditioner, then you're applying things, so you're drying the ball out only to recondition it, which is a bit counterintuitive. And we try to make those steps as efficient as possible as you go through the steps of prepping a football.
The first two steps I did kind of had no purpose, considering that what is being accomplished by them can be dealt with later without the drying of it out and stuff.
Correct.
Honestly, that was super fascinating to learn about from Dan and Emily and all the different things I need to do. Now, if you actually want to watch the full interview, we have it over on the Big Football Guys, our podcast channel. We posted the entire interview, so if you want in-depth knowledge about everything we talked about, you can actually go watch that too. Now, for me prepping the football myself, I'm going to go over it a little faster because you don't need to see the same thing twice. Although there's going to be a couple technique changes we're going to do. Now, for part 2, we have a lot better quality supplies for this, and all of them were provided by Gridiron Football Prep. So we have their lip balm, their conditioner. By the way, both have all the instructions on the back, so you can't lose it. We have their brush, which should serve a lot better, and we have more of their mud. The other thing they recommended to speed things up a lot is gonna be a heat gun. I'm gonna use this heat gun to help speed everything up. Finally, some technique things I learned that we're gonna do on this time. We're gonna make sure we brush the ball a lot more on the front and end. We're gonna make sure to get out of all the crevices. Our brushing technique, we're gonna focus more on swirls and less on up and down motion. And we're gonna make sure with the mud, we are not taking the mud off the football, we are working the mud into the football. But knowing all that, let's jump into it. So I have taped off the half of the football that I've already done, and now I can work on the fresh half of the football. And I did add a little tape to the top of the laces because I didn't like how the dirty laces looked. So I'm just gonna try and make sure those stay covered, although it's not really sticking super well. Tried my best. First step we're gonna do now is going to be to brush the football. And when I'm brushing it, I'm not using like this anymore. I'm using more circular motions now. So that's gonna be the big difference with this step, is gonna be circular motions. Let's jump into it. Look at the difference that this made. This is it fresh. This is it with this circular motion brushed in. So super good tip. Brush your footballs first. Push the brush into it in a circular motion. I'm gonna do it for the rest of the football. All right, you can see the football is now brushed, completely different look. Now the first step we're gonna do is apply the football conditioner tack. We'll apply this first, and then after that, we're gonna apply the leather balm. So we'll start off by applying the football tack. So now with the conditioner on here, I'm just gonna hit it with a heat gun quick to speed this up for me. So now with the first layer of conditioner in, heat gun to make it absorb in faster, but I give it a quick brush, and then we'll apply the leather balm. There we go with the leather balm. Now we put this on, we're gonna hit it with the heat gun. Okay, so it's been 30 minutes, and now we're gonna come back in, give it a quick brush, make sure all that balm is worked in. So now that the football has the conditioner and the tack on it, the next step is going to be applying the mud. Now with the mud, might be a little too thick right now, really not sure yet. Let's open it up and see. Definitely too thick right now. So I'm gonna have to go ahead and add some water to it, and then we can apply it. Because you can see right now, it's just too thick. We're gonna need to thin this down a little bit to give a nice even layer. Now with that added, let's check. A lot better consistency. So now with this mud, we're gonna apply it in a super even layer. That's what I found was the biggest advice, was my layer was not even. Gave it that striping. I wanna make sure the mud is even so you don't get any different discoloration in the football. Keep it even. Okay, so now I've mudded the football, and as you can see from last time I learned, I wanna make sure I put a way thinner coat on here, but make sure the coat is way more even. You can even see a little bit of the logo impressions through here. That's good, that's a nice even coat on here. That'll be a lot easier to get all that excess mud off. And the next step, after this thing dries, now let's get this thing drying. Okay, so we are back, and all the mud has dried on this, and way thinner layer, dried a lot faster. You can also see with the mud on here, this time it actually pulled a lot of the dye out of the ball directly. So I guess another interesting point to why you wouldn't need to do the water before, because the mud can do it too. So now that we have the mud on the ball, we're going to brush all of it off. The biggest tip that they told me was to brush in small circular motions and to brush the mud into the ball, not off the ball. Let's do that. Okay, now that you see how to do this, you can see what you do. You brush it, you give it that, it's gonna look like that. I'm not doing this inside, like that's making so much dust. I'm gonna go outside, I'm gonna do this quick, and then I'll be back. Okay, I can understand in the initial tutorials why they told you just to wipe the mud off with water, because if you brush it off like I did, it is so much more work. You can see that the color is completely different though. This is way more red, where this was actually a lot darker. Now that I have the mud off though, I just want to keep brushing this and kind of buffing it and pushing it in, and then I'll hit it with the conditioner, and then we'll see where it's at with the tack. I don't know if what I did was a good idea, but I just washed off the brush because it was creating way too dust. So I'm just gonna give this one more brush, even though it's wet. I think it'll still work. And then I'll apply one more coat of conditioner and see where we're at. So I got all the mud off. The ball is now dry again. I brushed it in. There's a little bit of maybe mud residue at some spots, like in the cracks, but I think we can live with that. Last step is going to be to recondition, and one more final brush. That is how an NFL ball is supposed to look. Now, I just want to take off the tape and compare. So this side of the ball was done the DIY way, and this side of the ball was done with higher quality, at least materials, to what we think. Personally, can I tell a difference? Now, I don't know how well this is showing up on camera, but personally, I can see a little bit of a difference, mostly from the way I applied the mud. If you look at this side of the ball here, there's more streaking and striping to it as far as me applying it in a really uneven manner. Whereas over here, it's a lot more even, and you can see some of the color coming through here is a lot darker. So I can understand by how I applied the mud, it's darker. Now, having said that, we pretty much reached the same end result, at least to the way it feels. It feels very similar in texture on here. The laces, a little cleaner, but they're still pretty dirty. So is this whole video a dud? I wouldn't say so, because the DIY way works just like the other way. The only difference is we're taking way less steps and way less time to get there, and we're getting the exact same result. So I guess it makes sense to go with these other materials because it just sped up the process a lot more. The other one took 36 hours for dry times, and where with the techniques I learned and the different materials that I was supposed to use here, I got it down to only a couple hours. So from that regard, it's a win. Personally, I thought the overall color was gonna be like way darker. There you guys go. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. This was super cool to learn how to prep a football, and I have 2 more footballs I'm gonna do after this and see how I do. Now, if you did like today's video, this one was way more work than we thought it was gonna be. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe, like the video, comment any other ideas you wanna see for us to do similar projects. All right, I'll see you next time.